Great to see everyone, I think, enjoying the presentations. Looking forward to, I think, reflecting a little bit beyond just the work and about this whole experience, because as you may have seen in that opening video, one of the things that we try to do with our Civic Digital Fellows is not just show them what the 40 hours a week in a federal agency looks like, but show them the broader ecosystem of civic innovation. We've done that through site visits, through one-on-one mentorship. In this panel, we're going to try to explore a little bit about what those conversations and what those experiences have meant. So I think to start us off, if each of you could just introduce yourselves briefly and maybe what you worked on this summer. Vivian, let's start with you.
Yeah, my name is Vivian. I just graduated from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo with a degree in liberal arts and engineering studies. And this summer I was a product manager at the NIH working on developing trainings for security system officers and developing a proposal to centralize IT procurement.
Hi everyone, my name is Brandon. Recently graduated from the University of Pennsylvania studying computer science and psychology. This summer I worked as a product management fellow at the General Services Administration in the Office of CTO, and there I worked on improving the usability of APIs that GSA provides. Just for those who don't know what APIs are real quick, API stands for Application Program Interface, and a good way to think about that is maybe like how Uber and Google Maps work. There's an API for Google Maps that Uber uses to show Google Maps on the Uber app. It's just a quick peer review of APIs, so at least you learned something when you came here. If you didn't know already.
Hi, my name is Olivia. I study data science and English at UC Berkeley. I'm a rising senior, and I spent this summer working with the Bureau of Labor Statistics on building a prototype for automating news releases and also building an internal API for one of their time series databases.
Hi, my name is Johncarlo. I'm a rising senior at the University of Florida, and I'm studying computer science. This summer, I was a software fellow at the US Citizenship and Immigration Services under their asylum division. I was working on their case management system for asylum officers.
Awesome, thanks so much. And the four of you from 4 different schools studying a myriad of things. So one of my favorite questions when speaking to folks in this community is how did you get to where you are? Because I think everyone takes such a different path. So I want to ask you all that same question too. What led you to Washington to wanting to be a Civic Digital Fellow?
Yeah, I could start, take that off. So I actually started out as a trail ranger in San Francisco working at national parks. And then I transitioned to working at an orphanage in Mexico City where girls were rescued from human trafficking. And I was supposed to teach English there, but I'm a really bad English teacher. But I'm good at networking and working with people. So I called my friend who had a startup voicing stories about college sexual assault. And I was like, hey, I have these stories, I want to share it. And we did it Humans of New York style, and somehow I found a photographer in Mexico City, found writers, translators, and then put on this whole campaign. I was able to raise about $3,000. It was on USA Today, and then I did a 360 and I worked at Toyota, and I was manufacturing cars in Kentucky. And then I was like, what am I doing with my life? And I love engineering design, but I wanted to merge my backgrounds together. So how do I do social good in tech? And I just kind of networked LinkedIn and then found Coding It Forward. And somehow I'm in DC now, so I don't know where I'm going to end up next month.
Yeah, I guess for me, sort of similar in that I also worked at a startup in DC a couple years ago, and at the beginning I just wanted a job, any job. But when I actually got the job, I think when I worked at a civic tech startup like 2 summers ago, when I actually got that job, and I think the mission actually resonated with me. It's called Represently, and their mission was to try to improve communication between politicians and the people that they represent. And so as I got to learn more about DC, learn more about the civic tech scene, I got to meet awesome leaders in civic tech. One of those people was Chris, right there. And so we met for lunch. The food wasn't that good, but the conversation was great. And that just was so inspired by, there's like, what, 15 people when you're there as a fellow, and you're working at different agencies and just doing amazing work. And I thought, wow, I hope I can be a part of that someday. And here I am. I think that conversation really inspired me to actually want to work and also be a part of the Coding It Forward Fellowship overall.
And here you are.
Yeah, here I am.
I think for me, because I go to school in such close proximity to the Silicon Valley pipeline, I see it in action a lot. And I was really craving something very different than that pipeline. So I was looking for opportunities that were kind of more mission-driven, where I knew what I was developing or what I was working on was going to do something positive for whoever used it. And that positivity wouldn't just be like, oh, it made it easier for me to navigate this app, which I will then use to walk my dog. And I wanted it to have a more significant impact in the sense that they finished using whatever I had made and were like, okay, I understand this better, or that was a good experience, I'm happy with what I learned. So a friend actually sent this to me It was like, oh, like I know you want like different types of opportunities, like maybe you should look into this. And so, yeah, it's my first time out east. I've spent my whole life in California, so it was kind of interesting that like, even though I was so close to all of like this tech hub, I chose to go across the country to do tech. So yeah, I'm really happy I'm here, and I've had such a positive experience.
So my experiences were kind of similar to Olivia's. I did some work in the private sector during like undergrad, and I really wanted to check out what the public sector was like. So I was on Facebook, and I saw like this ad for like a civic tech like Facebook page. It had like 200 people. And so I was like, okay, cool, why not? So I joined it, and then they were like, hey, there's like this really cool organization called Coding It Forward, and they have a newsletter. And I was like, all right, sweet, got it. And then it like stayed in my like updates tab in Gmail for like a month. And then one time I like opened it, and I was like, oh, they have a fellowship. This is really cool. And I was like looking down like the fellowship, like the fellow list, and I saw someone I worked with before, so I messaged them on Facebook. I was like, why didn't you tell me about this? This is awesome. And he said it was really, really cool, so I looked into it, and I applied. And a lot of the stuff that they were doing seemed really, really cool. And specifically for asylum, when I was interviewing, my interviewer was like, is there any place like in particular you really want to go to? And I said, like, Citizenship and Immigration Services. And they were like, word. So, because both my parents are immigrants, my entire family are immigrants, and I kind of wanted to give back to the immigrant community. And working in asylum really, really helped me kind of appreciate the struggle of people who are coming here, and being able to just do a little bit to help them come here was like really, really fulfilling.
Perfect. So I think to open it up a little bit, my next question is, given all of those experiences in the nonprofit world and the private sector on a campus that feels very insular towards the startup world, what did you find most surprising about this experience? The work, the people, the cohort, any part of the summer? Jason?
Yeah, so I think a word that private sector likes to throw around a lot is like high impact. That's 2 words actually. But they like to say high impact, like our app is like very impactful and they do all this stuff. And it's like, a lot of times it's true. But in public sector, it's like a totally different level of magnitude. And the reason why is because like someone can make like an app and it makes your life a little bit easier. But the work that I was working on a case management system for asylum applications. And our system could be like made to be much more efficient. Before we were using mainframes, which I heard that not many people liked. And before that, it was paper, which is really, really slow, and it requires things to be faxed out and like sent through USPS, which is super slow. So by digitizing all this stuff, we can make applications go by much faster and increase the number of people that we process, which means even if we get either like, if an adjudicator can make 1 or 2 more interviews and get those people on the track to get their green card, that's someone whose life has been completely changed. They can come to this country, they can work, they can live here legally, and they can have a much better life. And I think that's a much higher impact than anything else I could do.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I think there are 2 things that are very surprising to me going from the private sector to the public sector. So I worked as, one thing was product management is different to me, at least in private sector than it is in public sector. And second thing was the community. I wasn't expecting to be such a large community in civic tech. And so on the first point, when I worked as a product management intern at a private sector company last summer, it was very focused on the main, it's a business, right? So the main goal is to make money, like get the numbers up, things like that. And so a lot of times, a lot of decisions were made based off of that, based on that axis, right? That North Star. Okay, we want to get a max number of users on this application, but why? It drives the company's numbers. I'm like, okay, I guess, but. And so that wasn't something that really like drove me in general, just like to focus on growing the numbers just so you can drive revenue for that company. And so when I came into government, it was a little different, right? Because the government, there's no revenue that you're trying to hit. It's focused on having services that serve the American people. And so when I was working on improving the usability of APIs, and the conversation was all revolving around how did the customers feel about this? What's customer satisfaction like? Are people actually enjoying this? And while we might want to increase the number of people using the APIs, that wasn't really mentioned in the conversation. And so that was just a big difference that I saw in product management in the private industry versus the public industry. In my mind, product management is to maximize value, but it depends on if you're in the private industry, that you might try to maximize value for revenue, whereas if you're in the public industry, you might want to try to maximize value related to customer satisfaction. And so that was a really surprising thing to learn that summer. The second thing was community. When I first arrived here in the Going Forward Fellowship, I didn't really think that there would be that many people involved in civic tech. I didn't think there'd be people who would be able to fill an auditorium like this. So thank you for coming. That's really awesome just to see that overall. And also just when I was just going to random happy hours and talking to people saying I'm a Going Forward Fellow, seeing a look of recognition in someone's face. Oh, that's really cool. I know that program. Like, oh, cool. And so that really got me I'm excited about just to see how big and diverse the community is. Or when we had the event, the Congressional Baseball Club, and Coach Kepper said, oh, look at the little baby Pips. And I was like, oh, we are baby Pips. So it's just like all of that, and it just seems like there's such a wide and diverse community there that is there to support us and to make sure we succeed. And so that makes me really happy, makes me feel empowered, because on my campus, I think I'm the first person from my school, University of Pennsylvania, to do this sort of program. And Civic Tech isn't really talked about much. And so to come here and see a room with all these people who have the similar thoughts on Civic Tech as I do is really empowering and really validating as well.
Awesome. I think building off of that, Olivia, you're going back to school in a little bit. So what do you think will be your biggest takeaway, and how will you carry this experience forward?
I think something that I found surprising when I came, and that I'm definitely going to take with me going forward, is I really expected to be told what to do. I expected that someone would sit me down and be like, this is what I want you to build, this is what I want it to do, here's a set of specifications, this is how you're going to write it, this is the language I want you to write it in. And that wasn't my experience at all. It was kind of, I came in and someone was like, well, we have a sense this can be automated. We have some examples of what this would look like. You have a lot of agency in how you're going to do this and how you're going to structure it and what your end product will be and what you're going to leave with us. And so that puts a lot of responsibility on you, right? You need to make sure that the people you're leaving something with are going to appreciate and enjoy what you've left them with. And so that's something that I'm definitely going to take back with me to school. I'm not going to go into my courses now thinking okay, I need to learn how to use this material, I need to know how to use this new tool. It's going to be more from a standpoint of how could I use this for someone else in the future, and how could I help someone else understand this, and what types of things can I develop with this and leave for someone on whatever project I'm working on. So I think even from beyond a user standpoint, it's almost like what type of impact will the technology I make be for the people I'm working with. Yeah.
Awesome. So we have a lot of federal employees in the room, many of whom are supervisors, some coming from agencies that have heard about the fellowship but don't really know what it's about. And we heard Margaret speak at the beginning about building pathways and on-ramps for young people to ask those questions and to make an impact. So I think you all are profiles of 4 incredibly bright, mission-driven young people that every agency, every team, every person in this room might want to have on their team. So I think imagining a perfect world, what advice would you give them on how to attract people like you?
Yeah. Okay, cool. Something I thought is really important is just to emphasize how important the work you're doing here is, because at the NIH, they're doing a program called All of Us, and it's gathering 1 million data points to accelerate research and create a more diverse data pool. So being able to work on the security team on that is so important, because you are making that change. You are kind of driving this research that will change our health systems. So just being able to translate this message, I think, is a little difficult. But what you do here is so important, and it's going to affect the future in the country. So either it's through design or through, obviously, we're here at the Civic Tech, but finding ways, communication channels such as blogs, really fun, because I think we all kind of stumbled upon Civic Tech. So how do you make those more? How do you make more of those? So I think what we're doing here is continue to spread the message, and what you're doing is really great.
So yeah, if you guys want to get more young people into the workforce, hire more fellows. We're surprisingly cheap. But seriously,
I didn't pay him to say that.
I think there's 2 things that people here who want to get younger people to work in their government could really take away. And the first is to expand and build on the civic tech community. Like we said, we all just stumbled upon here. But there is a huge number of people in college and just starting out their careers who really want to make a big impact in their careers. They want to use their skills to do good in the private sector and just in general. But a lot of people don't understand, or they don't know that. They don't have access to that information of how can I actually do that specifically? And I think just having a presence of saying like, hey, we're here, we're doing really cool stuff, and we'd really like you to join us. That can go a long way into taking some of the really great talent and bringing it into your agency, which would be really awesome. And the second one that I would definitely say really helps a lot is to be a champion for the person that you want to bring on. The US, the hiring system can be really scary, and there's a lot of different like kind of paperwork and gears that you have to navigate through. And I just think being able to champion them, show them like the way to get through really helps. Like say, okay, well, first of all, you have to do this, like go on USA Jobs, and like this is exactly what I want you to see, and this is what I want you to work on. And just kind of opening doors, not being afraid to kind of help them be effective. If you can empower them, then you'll find that they'll go a long way, and you'll find that your agency is also going to be much better in the long run.
I think another thing to consider, like when you're hiring people who are like going to be leaving college soon, is also showing that you're going to make like an investment in their skills. So I think a lot of people would be worried that like their skills would stale if they were working in the same thing for like a long period of time. So if you want to make sure that you're getting these people in and you want to keep them there, make sure you're saying like, okay, well, we want new things too, so we want you to learn new things, and we want you to bring new things back to us. And that type of conversation can be really exciting for someone who likes trying new things, who would be happy to bring back something new that's going to be 5 years later down the line. It's nice to get people who are fresh out of college, but they come knowing new things, and if you keep them for like another 5 years and they aren't learning new things, then it's not as beneficial.
Yeah, I think those are all great points. So I'd like to add that I don't think he's talked about enough is to talk more about what the team culture is like. Now, I'm not saying go and get a ping pong table and free snacks. Like, while those are nice, I think it's more talking about the actual members who are there, the day-to-day. Like, are these people going to take care of you? Are these people going to look out for you? Are these people going to support you? When I joined the office as CTO, I knew nothing about the team culture, and I was terrified of that. Will I get along with these people? Will I like these people? Will I want to find my own corner to hide away? And none of that happened. I really enjoyed the people that I was working with. Everyone there was very supportive and always offered to help me out, and everyone there always offered me advice as well. And like just the other day when I finished my presentation, I got like 5 messages from everyone. Oh, great job on presentation. I really enjoyed it. And I'm like, oh, thank you. And just like all those different types of like support and just highlighting that and how you're recruiting, because at the end of the day, you're working with people, right? And so you want to make sure you like the people that you're working with. And so however you want to do it, just try to highlight a positive team culture.
Fantastic. I think hopefully there's a couple of people taking notes. And I will make a plug, and we'll talk about it a little later too, but our team, Rachel and myself, will be around afterwards. So if anything today you wanted to talk and you want fellows, come find us. We would love to have that conversation. And JC, thank you again for that plug. So I guess right now we have a captive audience of folks who really care about the space and who care about all of you and growing the next generation of digital leaders. So was there anything about this experience or anything that I think has maybe given you pause and maybe consider this is a challenge and this is something that we as a community, we as a fellowship can be doing better? Because I think we've heard a lot of positive, we heard a lot about the good work, but is there anything that you feel like we still, as a group, might need to be working on?
Well, I guess for me, one is more like telling me up front, like what are the different challenges and hoops I have to jump through to get to what's done. I think like people have mentioned earlier in the presentations and such that there are different things you might have to jump through to actually get what you want to get done. But I don't think that was as clear to me up front. And so it's talking more about that. And so I can go into specifics. One thing Margaret mentioned in her keynote, the Paperwork Reduction Act. I actually got very familiar with that act because I tried to do a survey. My manager was like, hold on, what are you trying to do here? Calm down. There are processes and regulations in place. And I didn't know anything about that. And so I just assumed I could just talk to a random person off the street and ask them questions. It doesn't work like that. And so just like learning about those different regulations and knowing up front and setting up expectations, okay, this is what you're getting yourself into. You're making a huge impact, but these are the hoops you might have to jump through. I think it's something that should be emphasized more.
Yeah, definitely. I think we, as a fellowship, definitely try to stress that over communication, that transparency. And we found that if you know what you're getting yourself into willingly, or maybe you stumbled upon that Facebook group, then it makes it a lot easier because 10 weeks is not a lot of time. And I think one of the things that I'm continually impressed with is how much work that the fellows are able to do, even with some of the challenges that are unanticipated. So I just wanted to thank all of you for being here, for being a part of this conversation, and for being a part of our fellowship community. Thank you so much.
Thank you.